Hello and very welcome to this webinar on remote team leadership. Today we are going to highlight the most important aspects of leading remote teams and how to create teams that prosper, develop and deliver. My name is Jon Urdal. I am CEO of Force Agile Norway. My main background and interest is lean and lean agile ways of working.
Yeah, thank you, Jon, and good to see you here. My name is Knut Aulen. My background is from leading several type of companies, from startups, buyouts, listed, so public. When we started Force Agile, was really to emphasize the purpose, what we can call the business purpose, and combine that with all the methods and technologies and tools and talents we have, so that we get a match and are able to really put the forces together and direct them in one direction.
This webinar is part of a comprehensive set of offerings that we have. We have webinars, we have workshops, we have courses, and we also have consultancy services. We also have courses, for example, in the remote team leadership, we have a one-day course highlighting leadership and the best ways to work in remote teams.
And may I just add, Jon, that we truly believe in bringing competence and skills into an organization to make things happen. Most people, they know and they want, but they need to get some more training to be confident in how. So, and we strongly believe when you are confident in how, you are able to achieve a lot more.
So we have divided our model for remote team leadership into 5 separate parts connected together. The first one has to do with corporate visions and values, why we are here, what are the visions, and align the visions with what we are actually doing day by day. The other part, leadership style and behavior, goes into what kind of leadership behavior enhances the teams and make the remote teams perform, feel safe, and so on. Then we move on to the individuals and the teams and the way we actually teamwork, where we have some very interesting and relevant input on how to actually perform in the team as individuals. And the fourth part of this has to do with goals, roadmaps, and methodology, where we emphasize the need to have tangible goals, to break them down into specific tasks, work in agile ways in order to have a steady flow of value creation in the team, even though we are remotely working. And the fifth one has to do with supporting tools and technology. Patrick Lencioni, he said that teamwork is the ultimate competitive advantage. And he says that without good, well-driven and well-oiled machinery in teams, you can forget about finance and strategy and technology, because you get this competitive advantage if you really get teams to work in good ways. We have this extremely interesting new normal. I mean, this is a megatrend that happened and started long before we got the pandemic. And many of the best companies, universities, and so on, they were quite familiar with the so-called new normal long before we now are more or less forced to work in remote ways. The importance of being close to the office is not longer the most important requirement, but it's a completely new way to cooperate, and we need to master that skill alongside many other skills that we need in teams and in our leadership. How do we, as a company, as the leader, as members of the teams, as individuals, make remote teams work in the best possible way?
And Jon, if I may, I think you emphasized in the very beginning of this webinar the importance of all the other four factors, not number five, which is more about tools and technology. But if we look at what makes people happy is that they are able to master these tools. And that we can fool ourselves to think that we are all happy because we master the tools and we're able to communicate. But that is actually the first step ever. But all the other aspects of our feeling a part of a team and be leading a team and feel confidence and all of that, that remains unanswered if we don't focus on them directly.
It's just a word. The new normal is just a phrase where we focus on work instead of the office. It has to do with what we do, not where we do it. So a remote working team is a group of people co-working on common activities and projects using electronic communications as the mean to obtain it. The constellation that seems to be the norm as we go forward is the hybrid version, where members are co-working partly in office and partly remote. We will very soon work in constellations of 2-3-2, meaning, for example, that we work 2 days at home or off, not co-located. Then we meet at the office for 3 days, and then we have weekends for 2 days. Or we may have 3 days remote, we're meeting for 2 days and have 2 days in the weekends, and that kind of phrasing, that kind of putting remote working in a hybrid setting is gaining popularity in quite a speed. What we know from these statistics is that recruitment will change. An overwhelming majority wants hybrid remote working ways of working. And the practical aspects are important, like flexibility, how we like to spend our time, not wasting money or time getting to and from the office and so on. And many people are struggling with defining the work time and the private time. And that is one of the major concerns that leaders must go forward and take responsibility for, is to help people working remote to define when they are at work and then when they are in a private mode, because people tend to blend that together, and that is not a very healthy combination. What is the standing and influence on remote team working now when we are so well into this terrible pandemic situation? So at least 50% of employees are feeling a sort of burnout. And then every leader should ask the question, how can I do something about that? And the other one is that individuals who are not being communicated to are feeling anxious about the future. The lack of clear vision or a plan for what is going to happen after the pandemic is causing anxiety. And as we see here, 47% of the workforce agree or strongly agree that there are not enough communication regarding what are the company going to do now when we hopefully are getting to the end of the pandemic.
Yes, and I think we have to emphasize that we as human beings, we want, one of the part of our nature is to want to belong, want to be part of a group. And when you are at work physically, you get that input without striving for it. It gets more automatically. So I don't think we can underestimate the need for actually communicating the purpose of what we're doing and why we are here and how important you are. And yes, I see you, and I see the whole you, not only what you do, but I see you as a person. I think that is a very clear message here.
Absolutely. I also have to add that in the workshops we have on remote team leadership, we are putting a lot of weight into how to create that bond, that kind of being part of something important, even though you are not co-located all the time. This is quite an interesting thing when you compare to the last two statistics here, because here we see that even though we have burned out situations now, even though we have people being anxious about the future after the pandemic and so on, 52% of the workforce will and wish for a remote hybrid way of working. So in the pre-COVID-19 survey, the number of people wanting to work in hybrid ways were 30% of the workforce. That has increased to 52%. This is just a confirmation that the hybrid way of thinking is probably, and we have advised that for a long time. So what is the benefit of remote teams from an employer's point of view? The most important things is that remote teams gives the employers the ability to hire top talents. They don't have to limit their recruitment area in geographical terms.
And
Yes.
I think it's worthwhile mentioning about hiring top talents. We also run a company called Human Drive, which is an executive search company. And during last year, we saw that we were able to recruit over a wide range of companies, exactly as Jon says, people that previously wouldn't be possible to hire, just because everybody understand the value of people, knowledge and skills over physical distance. So this is proven also by ourselves. And it definitely makes a lot of sense.
Almost all surveys on this field also report an increase in productivity, at least for the companies who are doing it in the right way. So what you see is that companies taking really responsibilities and putting a lot of effort into making remote teams work, they see productivity gains and they see increase in wellness as well. Because if people really get the chance to use that flexibility that lies in hybrid teams, they also can do some planning. That means that they have wellness in focus instead of sitting on a commuter or something like that. So they have the ability to make wise choices, and when they see that, they also report on wellness, increasing wellness. And the best companies using remote team working also have quite a lot lower turnover. So that is also a very important fact, that skilled people tend to stay if they get this kind of flexibility in the best possible way. So what is the employee benefit of remote teams? Well, there are quite a lot. And what seems very obvious is that some of them are very practical, because people tend to look at the day in a practical way. If we have the flexibility, we can plan, we can do things that we are not able to if we have an office location all the time. For example, increased job flexibility is a very good selling point from a company, and a value that goes straight into the employer as a very good way of taking advantage of flexibility. Reduced time commuting, very practical, but many people use 2 hours just commuting to and from jobs. Having those 2 hours to do training or do whatever is a completely different story. Saving money, saving time, autonomy, working from home, time with the family, and work-life balance. That's important aspects that employees are focusing on.
Just comment, because we talked about confidence, and extremely important for a leader is to be confident, as you previously said, Jon. And if you're not confident, you start to engage in getting control. And then you start to ask for results in these meetings, showing that you are not confident. And that limits people's ability to actually work. So by training, by getting these skills, and I'm emphasizing the skills, that is to execute on them, and you will deliver and provide more confidence, and you will be more confident as a leader and extremely more effective.
This is the model, or the building, as we like to call it, showing what are the major issues you have to deal with in order to build good remote hybrid teams. And we will go through them a little bit here, but remember, if you would like to know much more and get training and so on, we have these offerings. It's just to take contact, but we would like you to understand enough to see that these 5 different parts of the building are crucial in order to get remote teams and hybrid teams up and going in the best possible way. So in distributed teams and remote team working, the following team symptoms and challenges are common: a feeling of being socially disconnected from colleagues, a weak connection between the teams and the goals of the organization, a lack of common values, a feeling of not being affiliated with the team or with the organization. So telling the big picture, get the remote team to buy into it, connecting today's actions with the visions of tomorrow, and have KPIs to show the team and that we are on track, we are doing the right things. And also the leadership team in the corporation must involve themselves in communicating the visions and values. This is maybe one of the most important and most neglected things that we find when we study this and we train on this.
Because we think it's obvious why we're here. It's obvious what we try to do. It's obvious how we do it. It's obvious who we are, but it's not obvious. So it's heavily under communicating. So, which means you have to know the members of the team. You have to know them. Who are they?
A remote team is not something making leadership easier because you don't need to know them that much. It's quite the opposite, as Knut explains. You really need to know what are their struggles, what are their strengths and weaknesses, and how do I fill in the gaps in order to make this team thrive. Mark Busher says it like this, that we believe in the principle of transparency by default. And that's a good start. Start with transparency. Acting transparent and being transparent create openness and sense of purpose. We often ask leaders, are these things, these aspects on this checklist, part of your day-to-day way of leading? Have you thought of the team structure? Many leaders don't bother about that, or they haven't understood the importance of thinking about the team structure. Have you used the time to really define the roles and responsibilities within the teams? Have you continuously made sure that you have ways to secure social safety and networking between the members? Is that top of mind? Do you build trust and respect because you decentralize decision making? And many leaders struggle with that. They are so into having the habit of deciding things. When you have remote teams, you need to think otherwise. But at the same time, you should be clear on expectations and you should be clear on deliverables.
And I will add, Jon, as we just talked about, that let's say this example leader who has done all of this, and has this leader been able to looking at himself or herself and ask, am I confident in my role? Do I really feel I get the support I need to be the best of myself? Or do I have to involve my or upper management to get that conversation and to secure myself and make me confident? And I think that's all. Often we miss that because we don't think it's important enough. It's only about me. But this is really, really important. As a leader, you have to make sure you are confident in your role.
Then we have the motivation part, and fortunately, we have come this far that we know much more about what really motivates people than we did just 20 years ago. And we know that people are motivated by three aspects. Autonomy. To be fully motivated, you must be able to control what to do, when, and with whom. That's autonomy. The mastery part is that in the context of teams, mastery is the ability to successfully achieve something important together. At the same time, mastery can also be viewed as a desire to improve and increase your potential to perform and take on new challenges. So that is mastery. It's an extremely powerful thing that leaders must know about and live by, so to say. And the third part is purpose. And this aspect has to do with the work situation and the task at hand, so that as well as connecting teams and individual goals to the vision and goals of the organization. And as we said, that is one of the things that we as leaders are doing all too seldom. But the purpose part is so important because it keeps people motivated to know the connection between what I am doing and the mission we are on with our company. We also have some very important and relevant practical things because everything is not difficult. Some things could be built into routines. Have organized communication, that's a do. Clearly explain goals and expectations. That may be a bit hard, but it's a clear do. Use the right technology. That's not very hard to do, but you need to do it to get the job done. And you need to empower team members. Extremely important and sometimes difficult thing. What you should stay away from and you shouldn't do is to micromanage. That is probably the number one big failure of leaders, and that leads to dysfunctional teams. Expect employees to be available 24/7. That will blur everything that has to do with remote teams and the use of time and to sort what you do private and what you do at work. You can't expect employees to be online, even though the technology allows you. You shouldn't demand overtime, even though overtime must be done from time to time, but don't expect overtime to be part of the daily way of working. And the last thing is to forget about bonding and team spirit. That is the things you do to build the team and the feeling of affiliation. So we have icebreakers, and some leaders think that icebreakers is something we do when the team is new, but icebreakers are also a way to making things not that formal in order to get the communication going, even in well-established teams. We have been talking about leaders for a long time now, but not everything is about the leader. We must expect something from the team as well. And these are the 6, in our view, top things that you as an individual team member must think of for your own sake and for the team's sake. So these 6 different aspects can be trained on. We won't go into that in detail today, but these 6 things are also things we are training teams on. How can the teams learn from the members and learn across teams as well to get the team skills lifted? When it comes to goals, roadmaps, and methodologies, What recognizes the best remote or hybrid teams are that they set goals periodically, they prioritize with customer centricity, they have business value upfront when they prioritize what to do, and they also combine that with team development needs. So it's a package. We have to deliver something with customer centricity. We need to focus on what business value it means to deliver to the customers, and we also need to develop as a team. And the best teams, they discuss, they align on the roadmap to follow to get that going. And they use daily stand-ups. They are not on the daily stand-ups solely discussing deliverables, but they are also bringing up things that are that can be done to overcome hurdles and so on to get the team being even better. So the best remote teams working in so-called agile ways, we are talking much more about that in the courses and workshops, they tend to use 15-20 minutes, and they manage to do that within that time frame because they are focusing on what matters when they meet in the daily stand-ups. As we have been underlining more and more, actually, Knut, is that when we define and help companies defining the team goals, we also need to define what are the conditions when work is done, when the item is done. So every time you do something, prioritize a task in a group, you should within that group also align on what characterizes this thing when we can say it's done, because then you learn to work in a very structured way.
Exactly. And then the goal is meaningful, it's purposeful. It's not a goal to put pressure on people, but it's a goal that is meaningful, that makes sense, and that makes people understand the importance and align, of course, everyone on board in the team. I wanted to comment on these communication skills that we talked about a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we often talk about extrovert versus introvert. And of course, extroverted people are more willing to share their thoughts. That's how they thrive. But they don't necessarily have the best thoughts. We never know that. So as a leader, it's also important to make sure and that it's room in time and method to make the more introverted people be their voice to be heard, because often brilliant ideas, brilliant input come from people that do not communicate and share so willingly. So, and that's an extra bonus to be able to, when you're good at that.
This is a part where training comes in, where we do training and help leaders and teams work. And that has to do, how do we break up goals? How do we prioritize topics? How do we work aligned in the team in order to bring in the tasks that means most to the customer or to the team, and make sure that we have a definition of done, so that we always know where we are and what we are going to do next. And that short-term actions that you are doing within the team and referring to the daily stand-ups and so on, that's part of what we call a lean, agile approach to working good in teams with a customer centricity in mind. We have much to say about that in the courses and the workshops, but we only want you to see here that you can start by thinking, what are our high-level goals? How do we break them down into tangible units? And how do we act on them in a way that we optimize for team working, so that we have an aligned team, a team that develops and delivers customer value all the way.
And I'd like to add that when you are part of creating a great team, because you can't do it on your own, you have to get your team on board, right? So you are part of creating a great team. Then you will experience that more and more tasks And mind you, tasks that really brings value are are done by the team. And we see examples of teams that have delivered 3 times as much as previously because they thrive and do well as a team. So investing in teams, thinking of, okay, what if I got 3 times or 2 times or even only 50% more out of the team? It's a huge payback and return on investment to invest in your teams, and they will all feel better, and you will also feel better as a leader. So that's really the reason. It's a business reason, and it's a individual reason, and it's a team reason.
But as you see, we have also an overview, and it's quite comprehensive. This is just an overview of what kind of tools needed in a remote team or a hybrid team, and for what purpose you use the different types of tools. But again, this is just supporting things. This is not what is making or breaking a team. This is something you need to have in place, and you need to know about them. And most teams, as they develop, they get a very clear understanding of what works and what does not work. But these are the main categories. And for everybody who wants to know more, just send us a mail and we will explain as needed. But now, Knut, how do we start in our team? How do we go from where we are, and what do we offer in that regard?
Yeah, I think that we like to offer, as we say here, let's put an hour aside and see what you can achieve by adding your team into this way of thinking and this way of acting. Because changing doesn't, it starts with thinking. You have to start with thinking differently, and then you have to buy it by heart. And when you have bought it by heart, you are starting to acting differently, and only then you will see results. So it's a process going on inside yourself, you can say. So we'd like to share and invest an hour in you and your situation to see how your situation can be improved and how we can help you. And if we can help you, we don't guarantee that we can help everyone, but we have a very good track record so far. We also provide a very comprehensive booklet as a guide to remote team leadership, which gives a lot of competence. It doesn't necessarily give you the skills, because skills you need to exercise to get skills. You need to get practice. So during our courses, we give you those practices in addition to the competence. So we suggest that you ask us for an hour, and then let's start from there.
Exactly. We also have, Knut, webinar only offer, because we are running courses in this. We have a one-day version of this webinar where we have the possibility to get much deeper into the ways to work, the ways to lead, the best practices to take advantage of, in order to really jumpstart the way to work in hybrid ways. And that kind of this course for webinar from our webinar is highly discounted. So if you want to, let us know. We will send you this registration form, and you just add remote webinar to it, and we will give you 2 seats for the price of 1 here. And that is at 1 day. So we really have the time to take into account situations that arise, how leaders should deal with the typical hinders and challenges that we meet, and also get into the best practices, agile ways to get remote teams up and going in the best way.
And keep in mind that many of us, we have done many things, and we believe and trust we are experts on a wide area of areas. And suddenly we lead teams with experts, and your expertise can actually be a blocking point. So be able to actually act as a leader and not being a blocking point, you have to you have to change your own thinking. And that's one of the things that you will get from spending a day and investing a day with us, because it takes a change of mindset, and it takes a change of mindset to change your skills to be able to execute on what you actually know.
And for everybody who joined, we thank you so much, Knut, and we hope to see you and follow you on the way and see how you can succeed on your roadmap toward successful hybrid team working.